Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer, Strategic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, May 7th. We had the Fed meeting today. We had some headlines as well, and a lot of earnings reports. So I will try to get through some of those, give you some themes of the day to kind of take away from all of this action, which basically is not sending the indices in any real direction yet, but I think a direction may be coming. I'll get to that. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. So what do we want to cover first? Let's cover the Fed first. I will kind of give you where we ended up for the day. And that's basically looking at Fed fund futures. I think that is that's the telltale. When there's a press conference that lasts for, about 40 minutes, and a lot of language about uncertainty, a lot of language about too early to say, those types of things. Not a lot of confirmation of what comes next, other than that there's a lot of uncertainty and the Fed's not ready to really do anything or provide any context of what they're going to do. I thought that there were some good questions from the press today, like one of which I heard a question about, hey, well, you mentioned that there's uncertainty or risk in both the possible rise of inflation as well as employment. And there was a question about, well, where does employment need to go in order for you to cut rates? And I think there was two different reporters asked that question in kind of different ways. And Powell's response did not get any specifics or details about what that means. Where, like, let's say the unemployment rate, or jobless claims or continuing claims or any of that. Like, he wasn't specific about anything. So that's very odd to me, but it is what it is. That's my opinion. I could tell you that the Fed funds rate, we're now looking at June, has dropped to now about 23% chance of a cut. Going out to July, it's about 62% chance of a cut. I would have asked a couple questions. I would have asked, hey, the rest of I don't want to say the rest of the world, but there's a lot of other regions. Europe is cutting interest rates. They're down to 2.5%. We're sitting here at 4.5%. What do you think? I would have asked, why do you think that they're doing that? Why do you think that they're cutting rates so aggressively? China is also stimulating, right? That's another question. Why do you think they're doing that? What do you think's going on there? Do you think that we should be moving in line with the rest of the world? That would have been a question that I would have asked. Also looking at interest rates, right? We know that the Fed controls the overnight rate, so the short end of the curve. They don't control, so if you're looking at TLT thinking that's going to have an effect, it doesn't. Why? Because TLT is moves on supply and demand. It doesn't. It's not artificially set like the overnight rate. Also, take a look at the 2-year rate. That's now down to 3.79. So that's been moving essentially lower. It hasn't moved by leaps and bounds, but it is decently lower now than that overnight rate. So the Fed's leaving the rate there. Meanwhile, the rest of, specifically the 2-year rate has been moving lower. So I'm just kind of giving you some things that I think about, but we're not hearing much from, any clarity from the Fed, or didn't get any. And again, why am I bringing this up? Why do I go over what the Fed? Because if you go back to, let's see if I can find this for you really quick. If you go back to Marty Zweig's investing rules, and I think that these are important. I think that these are very valid. He's got number one, the trend is your friend. Don't fight the tape. Okay, I agree with that. Right now, we're gonna go over the indices in just a second, and I'll tell you what I think about the trend right now. Number 6, which I think is very important, don't fight the Fed. All right, so we know that the Fed holding interest rates around 4.5% is more of a tightening stance. So that's why I view what the Fed does in monetary policy, considering that last year and the year prior, it was mainly the Treasury that was doing all the stimulus, increasing debt levels, right? We know all about that. I'm not going to rehash that, but that's again why part of the reason why inflation never went down is because all the stimulus that was provided fiscally. Remember, it's always about you know um, well, normally you don't have that much fiscal stimulus as you've had the last few years. But that's why, I think when Marty put these rules together, it was mainly the Fed who was either doing the tightening or providing stimulus, not so much the Treasury. But, things have changed. But regardless, that stimulus is not in effect anymore. So now it does go back, and that rule is very important. So don't fight the Fed. We don't have, so again, I'm going to move on from this because I don't want to keep saying the same thing. But that's what we got out of the Fed today. A lot of indecision in the S&P today. And the overall, also the Qs as well. And I think that we're starting to get, I mean, this range that we're in right now, eventually we're going to break this range. I can't tell you when. I thought maybe today might be a catalyst for it. But notice all week long, since, I would say after Monday, we've just been kind of sitting here. And look at all the wicks on these candles. So there's a lot of indecision right now. I would watch not only this level here, 559, call it 560, but I would watch basically the low of this week. And I would watch, basically where we got to the highs on Tuesday, maybe this bar, 563.29. So again, a lot of indecision. Let's go to the Qs for a minute too. The Qs are back inside the value area for the year, but this is not the candle for the week obviously is not done yet. So we don't know where this is going to land, and that's about the top of the value area is about 0.5% away. I would like to see price personally get back above this 485.84 level. So going back to this daily chart, you could see just back and forth price action, particularly at the end of the days, have been very whippy. The last 2 days prior, the market really kind of had sold off into the close. Today was the opposite. The market rallied into the close. And that's another story for today. As I mentioned, headlines, Trump to rescind chip curbs after debate over AI rules. The Trump administration plans to rescind Biden-era AI chip curbs as a part of a broader effort to revise semiconductor trade restrictions. So less restrictions coming, I guess, on chips. That really helped that group today. Towards the end of the day, we saw a big move up, and the semis were one of the best performing areas today. So maybe that provides some relief to this group. I'm just going to go through just IWM really quickly with you. I'm just going to show you the daily chart, but this is also like right at a possible decision area, consolidating right at this 50-day moving average. Now we know this is still in a downtrend, as are the other indices, still below the 200-day moving average. So I would expect some movement here as well. Just don't know what's going to what it is that is going to bring us out of coming basically to this little triangle pattern that we've got in IWM. But I think that's important to watch. One more I'm going to bring into the fold here is Bitcoin. Bitcoin has also been kind of doing that same thing. It looks like it's been going, it starts to break down a couple of days, been holding in there, just shaking everybody out. And I think the more that you can kind of sit in this market versus trying to trade every turn, that right now this week is not working very well. A lot of stops and starts, and basically just looking for what direction. The more experienced trader usually waits for the direction and then goes with it. But again, it's a little bit difficult because it looks like it's going to be one way, and then it kind of cuts back the other way. All right, so that's two of the stories for today. I will bring up the SMH chart. We know that this group has been lagging a bit. Maybe this helps out the group a bit and continues to climb. Again, this market has been a lot, since the middle of April, when we started to come back, this market has been, we've seen a lot of things like some of the most beaten up areas kind of come back, and they usually come back pretty, have come back pretty hard. Like transports makes me think of that too. Transports did not look good about a week ago and had this big move on Friday. Since then been consolidating. But again, there's these quick, fast moves and large moves that are happening just when you kind of think one group is not doing very well. So I would keep that in mind. I think overall earnings have kind of been that way. I think that, the names that have been sitting very close to new highs where they've rallied decently, have gotten beaten down quite a bit where the expectations are high. Uber, I thought the expectations were high coming into that report too. Didn't want to have anything to do with that report personally, but the stock did okay today and basically finished flat. So I think this will be interesting to watch. I don't have a good feel. I try to give you a sense of um, whether I do have a good feel or don't have a good feel for something, or whether I like a name or I don't. Uber, I don't have a good feel for. I've used Uber for a long time around the New York City area in New York City, and I have stopped using them because they're too expensive. I find hailing a cab is cheaper, but they've got other things going for them than, obviously just in New York City. They operate globally, and what they said, I think, on their earnings call was that they're getting more sales internationally now. I think they said Europe was pretty strong for them. Also, it's going to depend, I guess, on who they make partnerships, which they are trying to do with some of the autonomous vehicle groups. So that's also going to be important for Uber. But like I said, I think that there's better plays out there. But I get it. There's a lot of fans for this name. Other names that are moving after hours. AppLovin, right? This is another example probably where the expectations were kind of low. We just heard like Muddy Waters just came out, I think today, and said that they're doubling down on being short this name. All right. So just people getting, it just feels like a lot of people are getting are on the wrong side of folks that are on the wrong side of the fence are really on the wrong side of the fence. And look at this stock go up to 360. Very nice. Melly also with another strong report for Melly. Melly's still going here. This was a nice looking chart here. Looking at the daily chart, a little bit of consolidation, and this is going to be new highs for Melly. So very impressive. And we are starting to see, some of these international names get more interest here. Look at the chart. This had a real nice move today, 11%. This stock has been a tough one. This has been a big position for Stan Druckenmiller, but it hasn't been that great of a performer over, given like he's been long this name for like, probably 5 years. I guess if you go back from probably, I'm sorry to misquote because I don't know the exact holding period, but he's held this name 4 years and has had a big position in it. Let's see if it can now do something here. Watch 2591. I would definitely be interested in this name because it does look like you've got the base and now you're trying to break out of the base. So this is a good looking chart if it can continue to get above 2591. So I like that. A couple other names after the close, some decent earnings reactions. AXON is up nicely. Bros, which was originally down, has reversed and gone higher. Paycom is up 2%. INOQ is up a little bit. Let me just look at some of the smaller names here. And there's a few other names. SEZL had good earnings. That name is up pretty decently. On the downside, because every day it seems like we're getting a number of names that are down decently. Look at FTNT is down decently. STAA, which is a medical device company, that's down. There was another medical device company that was up earlier. If we look at the regular market, and if we look at names that were up, I believe you're going, let me just switch this back so I can find it. But CRL, Charles River Labs, was up 18%. So that's what we're getting. By the way, very nice in TEM. So again, there's been some standout names. There's been some good reports and there's been some bad reports too. I would watch this name. Look at the volume today in this stock. So let's see if this closed above the high from the other day. Let's see if this stock can get going. Right, another one, and I am long this name, which is Hood. I actually added to it a little bit today. Still has a lot of work to do. Has to get above that high from the earnings, and then can maybe move up to 54.70. So that's a couple names that that I'm watching. You know, one other thing that I referenced earlier in the day, talked about this a little bit in Substack today, that you know, if you look at the new highs that's taking place, we are still seeing um, names that, so if we look at the S&P new highs today, right? So first of all, only 18 names made a new high today, not a huge number, but go through these names and see what you find. And again, um, I'm not trying to sway anybody's opinion. I'm just telling you what is, right? So for example, look at the stocks that are making a 52-week new high in the, this is just in the S&P. I'll bring up NASDAQ in just a second. Unfortunately, I don't have a NASDAQ 100 or a Q's look at this. I just have overall NASDAQ. But you've got Philip Morris, Altria, right? These are tobacco stocks. These are very defensive stocks. They are making new highs. Well, what else? Do we see that theme being played out in other areas too? HIG, that's an insurance name. That's making new highs. Travelers, that's making new highs. McKesson, CAH, these are very defensive healthcare names, specialty, I believe specialty pharma type names. COR is another name, right? These are some of the most offensive names out there. RSG, SIBO is an exchange stock. I know CME's out very close to new highs. Maybe that didn't make a new high today, but it made a new high yesterday. So of this list, right now, you got a couple of names that are a little bit more aggressive than that, or a little bit more high beta. Netflix is on the list. That's a good thing. Spotify was on the list. I'll get to the that's not in the S&P, but it's in NASDAQ. But overall, like, this does not paint a very good picture. So, you know, maybe this changes, but for now, it is what it is. And it's not like these names have just started going up. These names are extended. You know, and it just shows that there is still very much like a risk off. Look at Cardinal Health. Look at McKesson. I mean, these names, these again, I stressed this in yesterday's video, but these are your market leaders. You may want some of these other things to, like the TEM, to be a market leader. It's not a market leader. That's not a market leader at all. Now, it is trying, and it's trying to break out of some consolidation and push higher. And that's a good sign. But these are not market leaders, right? And it's the same thing. So again, I went over this in yesterday's video. Palantir, this is not a market leader, guys, right? It's not, it got rejected at the highs. That looks, for now, that could be a double top, right? Market leaders don't do that. Now, it could hold and it could build, and that's something that we'll have to watch. But, you know, it is what it is, guys. This is not a very risk-on type tape. Now, there's standouts, and I think a lot of people are watching the same names, but you know, a lot of these names are not at new highs. Now, let's take a look at the NASDAQ names. Now, again, this is a bit more risk on. You know, NASDAQ is that way. You do have more names, and I did sort this by price. So Netflix, which is in both of these indices, um, is on the list. Duopoly, right? So that's a software name, so good. VRSK, VRSN, both of these making new highs. There's a CME, PLMR. So you do have a bit more names. Okta, right? But you're just not seeing that in the S&P. So again, it's nice to see. I mean, there's more names making new lows here. 92 names making new lows, 42 names making new highs, which is just 1% of the index. But you know, I would keep your eye on this because, you know, we often see, as we're consolidating, we often get hints on what the market favors and what it doesn't favor. And I would say right now it's favoring the most defensive. Also, you could argue that some of those names that I just showed you in the S&P that made new highs, they're recessionary type stocks. Unless you think Philip Morris and Altria and RSG, which is a garbage stock, you know, maybe you don't think that those are recession stocks. I do. So even though we're seeing that under the hood, I would still watch the price action. And where we haven't really confirmed what the next leg is going to be, up or down, we're in this range. So I would watch the top of this range, as I went over earlier in the video, plus on the daily chart, the 200-day moving average, because we're not over that level as of yet. Guys, have a great night. That's it for now. See you tomorrow.